anything in the chat or try to find a way to sneakily interrupt you.
Okay.
Great. Awesome. So, Andrew, yep, all good to go?
Yep.
Awesome. Great. So thank you, everyone.
Stand by 1 second. Oh. Let me open the waiting room. A few more people. Sorry.
It's okay. Great. All good?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We have Brantly Millegan from ENS, Ethereum Name Service, who's going to tell us why your Dapp is not finished without ENS.
It is not.
Thanks. Take it away, Brantly.
Great. Okay, thank you. Yes. So Ethereum Name Service is our project. And my name is Brantly Millegan. I actually work for an organization called True Names Limited, which is a Singaporean nonprofit. And it is sort of the de facto manager of the open source project Ethereum Name Service. We, of course, have contributors from outside of that, True Names Limited. But we're just sort of like the de facto managers of it. That's our GitHub link. You can see all our code's open source. That's our website. Our lead developer and the creator of ENS is Nick Johnson. Trying to go to my next slide. Okay. So just 3 sections of my presentation here. What is ENS? How ENS works, and then how to integrate ENS, and then hopefully we'll have a time for questions after that. Okay, so ENS, of course, stands for the Ethereum Name Service. I'm going to talk about what this means. So first, I'm going to talk about how is it a name service? Because a lot of people misunderstand this. The funny thing about naming services is that, let's say with the domain name system of the internet, it's kind of lower on the tech stack. It just works. You almost never have problems with it. And so most people, including like most tech people, don't really know how DNS works, even really conceptually, and they don't necessarily really understand even like socially its dynamics and things like this, how it works. Just because it's like I said, lower in the tech stack, it just works. Your people are focused on other stuff. It's sort of like how most people really are not experts on TCP/IP, right? So let me just say a few words about this kind of naming services or systems. So ENS, like any naming system, is just a lookup system. That's it. A lot of people try to overcomplicate it and make it, they think it's doing a lot more than it's really doing. Literally, you provide a name to it and it provides you information. Very simple. So your computer then might do something with that information, but that is separate from the name system. So for example, with like the World Wide Web, with DNS, I type in google.com, okay? I am not actually like going to google.com. What my computer is doing in the background is it connects to DNS and it asks DNS, hey, what's the IP address of this in the records of google.com? It tells your computer, and then your computer goes to the IP address, and that's the IP address of the Google servers. The naming system is just like a UI thing, but that's all it does. So like DNS is not like what connects you to Google, it just tells you where to connect to Google. So why do we have naming services in the first place? Because identifiers that work well for computers don't work well for humans and vice versa. So for software, identifiers, they can be automatically generated, they can be numbers and letters, even if you have, a string of 100 letters and numbers, a program can instantly see that that's different than one that's exactly the same, but one letter difference. Humans can't. Humans use language, but language is like socially contingent. It requires context, meaning changes, all these things like this, and it's kind of trickier. What words should be using to identify what? That's like a human problem. And so what a naming service does is it just bridges the gap between the two. So ENS has names, it has owners of names, it has records that can store any information. So if you have a name, if you have someone's name, you can look up and retrieve records and then do something with that information. So now I talked about like with websites, what this means for ENS, let's say if you're using ENS to send a cryptocurrency payment, is ENS provides your wallet with a cryptocurrency address, and then the wallet sends the transaction on that network. So let's say I'm sending Bitcoin to Brantly.eth. This confuses a lot of people to say, well, Ethereum name service is on Ethereum. How could I send Bitcoin to an ENS name? The reason I can is because ENS is just simply storing the Bitcoin address, and the wallet just takes that Bitcoin address and then sends the transaction on the Bitcoin network. So why is it the Ethereum name service? It is not because it's a naming service only for the Ethereum ecosystem. It's because it's a naming service built on Ethereum. So the logic and records are stored on Ethereum, but it can store information relevant to anything, right? So I have Brantly.eth. I could put obviously an Ethereum address in my records. I could put a Bitcoin address, a Dogecoin address. I could put an IPFS hash. I could put my Twitter handle. I could put my home address. I could put my favorite comic book character. I could put any random information I want. It's just being stored on Ethereum. But of course, any application can retrieve that information and then do something with it. So why did we build ENS on Ethereum? So if ENS is serving things beyond the Ethereum ecosystem, it's just using Ethereum for the backend. Why do we use Ethereum for the backend? Well, we think it's the best blockchain platform for a naming service. We really believe this. So there's many advantages. It has high security and decentralization. So for example, if we wanted to have our own dedicated blockchain just for naming, let's say like Namecoin or Handshake or something, we disagree with that approach. One of the reasons is that it has lower security and decentralization. It's not gonna be able to compete with Ethereum on that. So we get to piggyback on all the high security decentralization of Ethereum. Ecosystem infrastructure. We're not going to have to reinvent the wheel here. There's an enormous, ecosystem of things that makes it easy to interact with Ethereum. That again, we get to just piggyback and use because we're on Ethereum. We can make use of standards. So, like for example, all .eth names, not all ENS names, but all .eth names are ERC 721 NFT tokens, NFTs. That means that an ENS, a .eth name can just plug right into like an Ethereum NFT marketplace. Really useful. Programmability. So because ENS is built on Ethereum, ENS names are like Ethereum smart contract objects that can be like owned by contracts, can be programmed to do interesting things. You have that whole, that's really useful. And then related to that, interacts with other contracts on Ethereum, or composability. Because ENS is on Ethereum, it can interact with other contracts on Ethereum. So for example, you could have an ENS name owned by a DAO on Ethereum or something like this. And then the DAO sells it in a marketplace, an NFT marketplace or something. I mean, you get all this constellation of things that come together when you're on Ethereum. So to be clear, ENS uses Ethereum to serve the internet, including and beyond the Ethereum ecosystem. And our goal is to make ENS, and therefore Ethereum, a basic piece of internet infrastructure used widely by people, whether they are part of the blockchain community or not. And we are doing this by complementing the DNS tech stack. I'll say a little bit more about what I mean there. The DNS tech stack, in parallel, expanding the capabilities of the existing DNS namespace, focusing on use cases not served by DNS, in some cases not possible on DNS. This is another key part of our strategy, that there's already, the internet already has like a widely used naming service. It's called DNS. We're not trying to like tear that down or like replace that anytime soon. We want to upgrade it. We want to complement it. There's some things that DNS does really, really well with its current architecture. That probably is not going to go away. But there's certain use cases that DNS was not built for, or that you can't even do. And that's what we want to bring to the table. We don't want to tear down. We want to build up and complement. So how ENS works. So no servers. ENS proper has no servers. It's run entirely as a set of smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And therefore, there's no permission needed to use the system. You just need access to the Ethereum blockchain. Sometimes people say, "Oh, we want to integrate ENS." Like, how do we do that? Or do we need your permission? Or where's your API or something? It's like, it's just on Ethereum. It runs itself. Our organization could disappear, and ENS just keeps plugging away. There are some things that we run, just to be clear, like our web interface. We do run that as a normal website just to make it easy for people to interact with ENS. There are other interfaces, and that can also be on IPFS. But ENS proper, its core, all runs on Ethereum. There are three primary parts of ENS. There is the registry. The registry is a smart contract that holds basically a list of all the names, owners, and resolvers. Resolver is a smart contract that holds records. So the registry has the names, who owns the name, and then also basically what smart contract you should look to find the records. And also time to live, TTL, we don't really use that. That's something from DNS that we have there in case we do want to use it. Okay, so then we have resolvers. So a resolver is a smart contract that stores and serves records. Why are these things separate? We could just have one smart contract that's the registry that has names, owners, and then also stores the records. The reason we don't, we have them separate, is that one, we can easily upgrade resolver contracts without touching the registry contract, which is, the registry is really the core part of ENS. It's like what names exist and who owns them. Resolvers, we upgrade on a regular basis. Also, this allows people to have custom resolver contracts. So if you don't want to, so we maintain a kind of what we call the public resolver, which is the default record sets that most people use. But let's say you want to have your own record set. You can create that and have your registry entry point to your record set rather than our default record set. So it allows for more customization. The third key part of ENS is registrars. So a registrar here is just a smart contract that creates and distributes names based on certain criteria, for example, payment. So for example, the top level domain or suffix .eth exists in ENS. Well, how do you get a .eth, what's called second level domain? So like Brantly.eth, how do I get that? Well, the way this works is that we have a smart contract that owns .eth and will give you a .eth name if you meet certain criteria. So for example, if you pay it a certain amount of cryptocurrency. There's also length restrictions and things like this. And then there's how long that you own it before the smart contract takes it back and things like this. This is all automated. So that's what a registrar is. You can have a registrar, by the way, for a second level domain. So some people have done this. Let's say I have Brantly.eth, but I want to be able to sell subdomains off that. I want to be able to do, sell, Calvin.Brantly.eth and Heather.Brantly.eth and Andrew.Brantly.eth, right? What I could do is I could give up ownership of Brantly.eth to a smart contract, a registrar, that then allows people to register subdomains off of it based on certain criteria. So that's what a registrar contract is. Of course, to make any change to ENS right now, because it's all running on Ethereum, whether you want to register a name or set records or transfer ownership or anything like this, this requires submitting transactions on the Ethereum blockchain. Which of course requires access to the Ethereum blockchain. You have to have some Ether to pay network costs, and then you have to be able to submit the transactions. We do plan on putting certain aspects, making certain aspects of ENS available on certain layer 2s this year. If you're aware, if you use ENS, Ethereum network costs are very high right now. Gas costs are high, just because if Ethereum has so much use right now that there's limited use, transaction, throughput capability, and there's so much competition to use it that the costs have gone up. So that has impacted everybody, including ENS. So we're going to be working on making it possible for certain parts of ENS to be put on a layer 2 so that you have lower costs. So resolutions or lookups of records, or whether a name is available or anything like that, do not cost anything because they are not a change to the Ethereum blockchain. So let's say if I have Brantly.eth and I want to look up the Bitcoin address in the records, that I'm literally just reading from the Ethereum blockchain. So that doesn't cost anything. Only when you're making a change is there a cost. Now, of course, this lookup can be done locally. You can be running your own Ethereum node on your computer. And like, let's say you have MetaMask in your browser, you can actually have MetaMask be pointing to your local node. Again, you're just reading from your own computer. Or you can use an Ethereum gateway service like Cloudflare or Infura, or maybe a light client, although those don't really exist. They're not widely used. Okay. So what do ENS records look like? So I mentioned that a resolver contract is just the contract that holds your records that you have your name and the registry point to. We maintain sort of like the default record set that we call the public resolver that we upgrade over time. And it has all the standard record types that we've standardized through an EIP process. Those are right now, we have addresses. So this can be any cryptocurrency address. We then have a content record where it currently supports IPFS hashes, swarm hashes, and tor.onion addresses, although we're hopefully going to be adding SIA hashes soon. We have text records, which just allows for any arbitrary information. It's not like optimized for storage, but you can store any text there. And it also supports all DNS record types. You won't see that in our manager because we don't support it in our UI, but that is there. And of course, you can make your own custom resolver or your own custom record set. You could also take the public resolver and you could extend it if you wanted to. So keep all the ones we have, but like add an additional one that's for a certain use case or something. I would only recommend that if you have like a really good reason. For the most part, if you want to store some new type of information, ENS, I would just use a text record because the public resolver already uses that. So you don't have to do additional work. So like if you want to see an example of records for yourself, you can go to our manager app, go to app.ens.domains, and just search for Brantly.xyz or Brantly.eth or something. And you can see all my records. And I don't use every single possible record that we have because we support like over like the top 100 blockchains and things like that. But I have like, I think maybe 15 or 20 blockchain addresses there. I have a content, record with an IPFS hash. I have a bunch of text records there, so you can check that out. Okay, so what is the namespace on ENS? So a lot of people think that ENS is .eth names. That is not true. ENS is naming infrastructure that runs on Ethereum that has .eth names, but can have lots of other types of names. In fact, it could have any kind of name. So ENS really is just sort of like the pipes. It could support any names. So .eth, though, was the first top-level domain available on ENS, and it is native to ENS. It does not exist in traditional DNS. It's something that only exists in our system. It is native to ENS and has sort of all the benefits of being blockchain native. However, we'd like to have more namespace available on ENS. There's really two ways we could go about doing this. One way is we could just create a ton of new top-level domains. We could do that. From a technical standpoint, it's negligible. I mean, we just literally just create them, and now suddenly we have 100 new top-level domains. We decided not to do that, though, because a namespace already exists on the internet in DNS. And that namespace is growing all the time. And we don't want to create what's called name collisions with DNS. So a name collision is when the same name exists on two different systems and it has two different owners. So we wouldn't want a situation where a name on ENS is owned by one person, the same exact name is owned by somebody else on DNS. And now it's like, well, depending on where I'm using that name or what browser or something like this, it's going to go to different things. That's called a name collision. That would undercut the value of having a name system in the first place. So what we've decided to do to expand the namespace available for use on ENS is to simply integrate the existing DNS space with the same owners on ENS. So the idea is that if you own a name on DNS, let's say Brantly.com or Brantly.xyz, there's a way that you can claim that same name on ENS. And it's not Brantly.eth, it's like Brantly.xyz. So we've already done this with some top level domains in DNS, .xyz I mentioned, but also the ones listed there, .lux, .cred, .ceo, .art, .club. These were sort of like test cases for us, and they're kind of done in different ways. We actually are planning on the next couple of weeks rolling out near total DNS namespace integration onto ENS. So like if you have Brantly.com, Brantly.io, Brantly.org, you'll be able to use those names on ENS here soon, hopefully. That system will be hopefully going on to testnet this week, hopefully, maybe even today, maybe later this week. And then on mainnet next month. Heather, you unmuted. Was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, there's a question here in the chat from Gawain who asks, is ENS similar to unstoppable domains?
It's a good question. You know, why don't I take that question at the end? Because I think I'd like to go through ENS here and then I can take that question.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So how does ENS compare to DNS? Well, it's simpler infrastructure, servers replaced by smart contracts, there's zero downtime, you can't DDoS attack it by definition. It's architected to be decentralized, censorship resistant, has built-in cryptography and individual ownership or self-custody of names, which I think leads to better security. Of course, as I mentioned previously, programmability and interactivity with other smart contracts or composability. And I mentioned that we're trying to focus on use cases that either are not good with the DNS or not possible in DNS. So like I said, you can store any information in ENS, but the things we're sort of practically focusing on are, so for example, with cryptocurrency addresses, like with payments, because ENS has far better security than DNS, then that it makes sense to be using ENS for storing your cryptocurrency addresses and for cryptocurrency payments. Same thing with IPFS websites. If you're gonna have a distributedly hosted website with IPFS, and then you're using DNS, which is somewhat centralized, that doesn't really make sense. You want to use something that's a naming service that's censorship resistant, so ENS. And then, like I mentioned, with programmability or interactivity or composability, I mean, DNS can't do any of these things. And so things like names owned by smart contracts or groups like a DAO or multisig, and then used as an NFT or something like that. Those are all things you can do with ENS. So how to integrate ENS? Okay, so you like ENS, where would you actually practically use this? Our goal is that every time a user might otherwise see a cryptocurrency address or a content hash, they instead see an ENS name. That's what we're focused on. So these are just examples of the primary ways that people use ENS. So cryptocurrency address forward resolution. So forward resolution is where you have a name and you resolve it to a cryptocurrency address. So for example, let's say I want to send Bitcoin to somebody. I type in their ENS name, and then, or in this case, let's say I'm sending Ether to them or an ERC20 token or something. And the wallet then retrieves the appropriate address and then can send that cryptocurrency payment. Super simple. We also have what's called Ethereum address reverse resolution. So reverse resolution is where you have an Ethereum address already, and you look up to see if there is an ENS name that is associated with it. This is useful because like a lot of dApps, like you log in with your dApp and they'll almost like your username is your Ethereum address, right? And you'll see something like this. This is bad UI. What you can do is look up, is there an ENS name associated with, and then display that either instead or alongside. So for example, if you have ENS reverse resolution set up, and you log into Uniswap or many other dApps, it will show your ENS name as sort of like your username. So it's almost like a transferable username. It's kind of cool. So yeah, like usernames, some dApps will even like give you free subdomains or something like this, which is really useful. I mentioned IPFS Swarm and Tor.onion resolution. So there's a number of browsers that support ENS and IPFS websites. So Opera, Brave, Status, MetaMask Mobile, the MetaMask extension, and some other ones as well. We have a list on our website where you can actually type in a .eth name, and if there's an IPFS hash in the records, it will show that like a normal website. So that's really cool. We also have a project called ETHDNS, which is like a DNS bridge to ENS and IPFS. So let's say if you don't have Opera or Brave or MetaMask or something like this, but you want to access an ENS and IPFS website, the way you can do that is just simply add .link to the end of the name, and it will resolve like a normal website. So for example, if you wanted to go to almonet.eth, I have that example there. You can go to that if you have the things I mentioned that support ENS. If you don't, you just add .link to the end and it will work like a normal website. Almonet is actually a great place to start because it is a search engine and directory of ENS and IPFS websites. So you can go there and see people have tons of websites they've set up on this. Tor.onion resolution. So if you have, this works, if you have the Tor browser, and it only works in the Tor browser, and you have MetaMask enabled, we've actually set up some .eth names to resolve to certain Tor.onion hidden services. So for example, if you go to duck.go tor.eth, it's just something I set up. I think you're gonna need to have put a slash at the end of it so MetaMask recognizes it. You do that, then it will go to the duck.go Tor hidden service. So that's really cool. Like I said, we do support ENS Records, although it's not a major focus of ours, but some people are experimenting with this. So for example, .cred is a DNS top-level domain that is integrated into ENS. And they have a couple interesting ways of using ENS. So if you register a .cred name on DNS, you automatically get the same .cred name on ENS. They just do it automatically for you. Ownership of the DNS.cred name actually follows ownership of the ENS version of it. And then they actually store DNS records on IPFS and ENS. And that's the canonical version of the DNS records. So what they do is then they'll pull those records from IPFS and ENS, and they will put them into their DNS system to work. But if you change the ENS IPFS version of it, then they change their DNS version of it. So they actually have priority to the decentralized version. So I think that's really an interesting experiment. Then of course, everything we haven't thought of. So custom, because we support custom records. So here's some useful links. You can learn more about ENS. Okay, so I like the chat here or something. Yeah, okay. So we have some questions. So is ENS similar to unstoppable domains? I would say unstoppable domains is similar to ENS because ENS predates it by several years. It's much more widely used than unstoppable domains. So ENS is an open source project. It's run by nonprofits. It has .eth names. We're integrating the DNS namespace. We really view ourselves as infrastructure for the whole internet going forward for decades to come. We have 172 integrations, including 44 wallets. We're in multiple browsers. We're in tons of dApps, things like this. Unstoppable domains, I'll just say it's sort of just like a copy of ENS that's run by a for-profit that has far fewer integrations. I think they have like 30 some or something. They also use the .crypto name. So they don't like, .crypto is also not in DNS. There's a problem with this though. So with .eth is actually, although it's not in DNS, is actually reserved in DNS as a 3-letter country code for Ethiopia. That won't be used. So as the DNS namespace expands over time, because people can register new top-level domains, nobody can ever get .eth. So there's not going to be a name collision. .crypto is not reserved. So in the next TLD round, then .crypto might get registered by somebody else. And now you have different owners of .crypto on the unstoppable system, unstoppable domain system, and then on DNS. And then you have name collisions. And because we're integrating the DNS namespace into ENS, it could have name collisions not only with DNS, but also with us. So I think that's a serious problem. They're taking a completely different approach. I think ENS obviously is better. That's why I'm on this project. But you can make your own decision there. And basically, we do everything Unstoppable Domain does, plus a lot more, plus like way more integrations. And just, that's all there is. Okay. Might reverse resolution not lead to unintentional data leakage about identity? Good question. I would say if you set up reverse resolution, you're wanting to associate your Ethereum address to your name in that way. Of course, that information is already public anyway. If somebody could do through forward resolution, although it's trickier to find. But reverse resolution, you want to leak that information. So I would say only set that up if that's what you're wanting to make that connection. Can you share a name for IPFS and ENS search? Yes, Almonit. So it's ALMONIT .eth and .link. Lol, exactly what I was thinking. Unstoppable domains is similar to ENS. Exactly. Doesn't ENS defeat the whole purpose of anonymity? So with ENS, you don't have to use your real name. You can use a pseudonym with ENS. Many people do. So I could be like, Jordan1400.eth or something, or whatever. So it certainly it can be a pseudonym. Or in some cases, maybe you want to associate your name with a certain wallet or something like this. I would say don't set your ENS name as like your name and then associate it with wallets that you don't want to be connected to you, because by setting up ENS that way, that is what you are doing. So ENS can defeat privacy, but maybe you don't want privacy. But if you do want privacy, then be careful how you use ENS. Thank you for that. Clarified a lot. Good. Have to head out. Love ENS. I have my own hosted website on ENS as well. Carl Farderson.eth.link. Okay, cool. Yeah, people can check that out. Question from YouTube. Will I be able to configure a CA policy in the future, for example, to register on or purchase an SSL certificate from the ENS registrar, basically buying certificate signing from ENS? Yeah, certificate authority. It's a good question. That is something certainly that could be done. We don't have something set up that way right now, but ENS certainly could do that. Let me tell you, there's a lot that ENS can do that we are working on. And there is, ENS is not finished, and there is tons of work to be done. And if you want to get involved in any way, you can start contributing. And we're even sometimes looking to expand our team. But there is lots of work to be done. So if you're like, why doesn't ENS have this feature? Well, feel free to help us build it, or maybe we will eventually. How can we get a copy of the slides you are presenting today? Good question. I don't know. Can I give it to the ETHGlobal people and they can make it available somehow?
Yes, definitely. We'll share it in your Discord channel.
Sure. Oh yeah, good point. I'll just put it in our Discord channel. Jack has the eyes. He's looking at something. Okay. Is there a thought on how to stop phishing sites, etc., which use very similar domains to famous domains and then are used for phishing? Yeah, good question. This can be particularly tricky because I can't remember the exact word. ENS supports a wide range of characters. So we even support emoji. We support other language characters. It's not just English or Latin characters or something like this. What can be tricky is that some of the characters can look very, very similar. And so actually I saw this the other day. Somebody said, oh, look, crypto.eth sold for 4 Ether. Well, what it really was crypto, where the O was I can't remember the exact language, but some Eastern European language O that looks just like the English O, but it's a different character. So it was actually, that was not the same as crypto.eth with all English characters. What we recommend is that wallets or any place that are using these things maybe have some sort of warning, like just so you know, this is all Latin characters, but has one Slavic character or something like this. But this is a very tricky problem to solve. Brace yourselves, ENS is coming. Dude, ENS is already here. People are using it, but yes, I think it has a lot of room to grow. Please, we live your slides. We love your slides, okay? Question from YouTube, is there an ENS JavaScript library to use for dApps? Yes. So if you go to our docs, so docs.ens.domains, we have a library section and we have like 12 libraries and we have multiple JavaScript libraries. I mean, we have our own JavaScript library that we call ENS.js, but we're also like in ethers.js, we're in web3.js, there's a bunch. We're in a bunch of libraries. Question from you, have you considered privacy integrations? Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what that means. It's like you could add privacy to different steps, different parts of ENS or different parts of the registration process. We don't have any plans right now specifically to like do that. I mean, I'd say like if you want to have maximum privacy, what I would do is I would create a new Ethereum wallet, like a new MetaMask wallet or something. I would then send it Ether from your main wallet, but through Tornado Cash or something like that. And then I would register a pseudonym. So they're kind of things you could do. It's tricky, but I'd say long term, we'd like to make that easier for people to do, but we don't have anything right now. Looking forward to getting in Discord. Okay, to follow up on phishing offenses, could user feedback or a blacklist be maintained by ENS? What kind of thought process is going on for anti-phishing approaches? Yeah, okay, so like a blacklist thing. We have no plans like ourselves to maintain a blacklist, but we would welcome the creation of an ecosystem of blacklists that then people could opt to use or not. So we're not going to obviously have some sort of blacklist like built into ENS that defeat the whole purpose. But like if a wallet wanted to use a blacklist or like a warning list, like, hey, you're sending to this ENS name, warning, this has been reported to be a phishing scam or something like this, or warning that this has like a Slavic letter in here when the rest are Latin characters or something. We would welcome the creation of that. So if anybody wants to do that, like even as a hackathon project, create some sort of blacklist or whitelist service or something, I think that'd be really cool. I mean, we've talked about that for a while. It's just waiting for somebody to do. Okay. Any other questions? We have opt-in blacklist tool. Oh yeah, so Makoto, yeah. So we've done a little bit of work on this, but I mean, nobody's like using it or anything like that. Definitely work to be done on that topic. Makoto is one of our developers. So Makoto, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions? Great. Okay, I will put my slides. How can we sign up ENS with promotion? Great, well, we don't have any promotions, but you can go to app.ens.domains and you can register a name and start playing around with it.
Thank you so much, Brantly. That was super informative. Great workshop.
Great. Okay.